Hello, welcome back.
Hi.
Look what we have. We have those monoglossier cups. Yours is...
We actually have these for ages. Yeah, not exactly in use.
It just
It
just came like that, basically. We didn't break it.
That's kind of, yeah.
But I always thought I wanted the orange one, so sorry.
That's a good metaphor. Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about?
The Little Prince. Saint-Exupéry. Yeah, it's pretty good.
We've just been reading it, and I've been reading the Bulgarian to our son.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex thought that he really wanted to show him the French too, because it's original. And he couldn't find it at home, even though I'm sure he has it, because he has like all the classics.
I'm pretty sure we have it somewhere downstairs. But
So he bought a new one,
Yeah.
completely new. They have these kind of things in the supermarkets in France. That's really great.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna talk about The Little Prince. Actually, I wrote my BA thesis on it, which I wasn't, by the way. It was not obligatory to write a thesis for my bachelor degree in the UK, but it was an option. And I did it, and I wrote about The Little Prince because I really like it. And I have a tattoo of the fox. It's not very successful. People are usually like, was that dog or was that anteater?
It's a roadkill, actually.
And it says responsible.
Responsible.
So we're going to discuss a short passage of The Little Prince and all possible languages that, well, most possible languages that we kind of know. So we decided to start with the English rather than the French, so everyone can understand. If you're understanding us right now, then the chances are you'll be understanding the English without any problem. So let's start with the English. He'll do the English, and then I'll do the French, because we want to be reading it in foreign languages. Then he'll read the Bulgarian. And the challenge is, we read the passage, and in each language, and we think of something, some characteristic, can be anything, can be a particular word, a grammar feature, something we like about the text, the translated text. There you go, the English.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, like, remember we went to the Little Prince Park?
Yeah, we did.
In Alsace. It was very new then.
Yeah.
So there is a Little Prince attraction park in Alsace.
That's quite nice, actually.
Yep.
But yeah.
And all these texts, all these languages, we found them online for free. So if you want to make your very own bilingual book for you to practice whatever language, you can just do that by downloading two different languages, The Little Prince into different languages. Go on, sorry to interrupt.
No worries. And he went back to meet the fox. Goodbye, he said. Goodbye, said the fox. And now here's my secret. A very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. What is essential is invisible to the eye, the little prince repeated, so that he would be sure to remember. It is the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important. It is the time that I have wasted for my rose, said the little prince, so that he would be sure to remember. Men have forgotten this rule, said the fox, but you must not forget it. You become responsible, forever, for what you have tamed. You are responsible for your rose. I am responsible for my rose, the little prince repeated, so that he would be sure to remember. That's a cool repetition there, like, said the little prince, so that he would be sure to remember. I had selected though the you become responsible forever for what you have tamed. I like the stylistic effect of like re-isolating the forever. It's a nice little touch. It really highlights the sort of temporal, or more like intemporal, I suppose, like infinite little
And
touch.
it's like it's surrounded by commas, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a way kind of to
highlight. Yeah.
to highlight and maybe to kind of to not take into consideration like the rules of order in a sentence. You just like surround something with commas.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Shall I go on with the original?
Yeah.
Don't laugh. I always say that. Et il revint vers le renard. Adieu, dit-il. Adieu, dit le renard. Voici mon secret. Il est très simple. On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux, répéta le petit prince afin de se souvenir. C'est le temps que tu as perdu pour ta rose qui fait ta rose si importante. C'est le temps que j'ai perdu pour ma rose, fit le petit prince afin de se souvenir. Les hommes ont oublié cette vérité, dit le renard, mais tu ne dois pas l'oublier. Tu deviens responsable pour toujours de ce que tu as apprivoisé. Tu es responsable de ta rose. Je suis responsable de ma rose, répéta le petit prince afin de se souvenir. So I chose the sentence that goes c'est le temps que tu as perdu pour ta rose qui fait ta rose si importante. And I like it because we have the que and qui in it, which they will both be translated by that in English. They introduce the subordinate clause, but they're different because we have que to introduce a phrase that is the object of the sentence, and we have qui when we introduce the subject. So we have le temps que tu as perdu, like you, it's not the time, it's you, and it kind of really emphasizes it's important what you did for the rose, and then that whole thing becomes qui fait ta rose si importante. That whole thing, like not just the time, but like the whole phrase, the whole part of the sentence until now. C'est le temps que tu as perdu pour ta rose, including the que, including everything. All that, it's important. All that is the subject.
If I may, that's a very good analysis. It's not necessarily linked to it, but I would also like to point out that Saint-Exupéry really wrote his book in a, I won't say simple, but it was clearly oriented toward children. As a writer, he wrote other books. It's quite interesting. Many people just think that he only wrote Le Petit Prince, but actually he was a pretty prolific writer. And his style is completely different. It's much more realistic. It's really based on his experience as a pilot. Actually, he died flying his. He died flying. We couldn't find his. We absolutely didn't find his plane afterwards. And he wrote a lot of stories about that. And his style is extremely dry. Like much drier than The Little Prince, so it's quite interesting.
Has nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it.
Very, very specific. It's very realistic and dry, so it's quite fun. Yeah.
Okay, you want to go on with the Bulgarian?
Oh. Sure, let's give it a shot. И се върна при лисицата. С Богом, каза той. С Богом, каза лисицата. Ето моят тайна. Много е проста. Истински се вижда само с сърцето. Същественото е невидимо за очите. Очите.
Очите.
Очите.
Не ушите.
Същественото е невидимо. I'm struggling. За очите. Повтори малкият принц, за да го запомни. Времето, което си изгубил за твоята роза и справи толкова важна. Времето, което съм изгубил за моята роза, каза малкият принц, за да го запомни. I'm basically talking like Like
6-year-old?
a
No,
6-year-old.
that's alright.
Хората са забравили тази истина, рече лисицата. Но ти не трябва да я забравяш. Ти ставаш отговорен за винаги за това, който си опитомил.
That's right.
Wow. Ти си отговорен за твоя роза. Твоята роза. Аз съм отговорен за моята роза. Повтори малкият принц, за да го запомни. Yeah, that was amazing. Well done. So, okay, it's not exactly a grammar point, but I do find it interesting, like in French, le renard, so it's masculine. And in Bulgaria, it's lisica, which is like really, which is a feminine name, and you really like putting the emphasis on like female traits when it comes to the fox. So it's like a very elegant lady with a beautiful fur coat, and it's interesting because it really creates a different sort of cultural links. Like it really influenced the way we picture the animal. Like in France, it would be le roman de renard. It also has a very strong very strong symbolism, like for French culture. It's really like the smart, tricky guy that's actually managing to just get what he wants in a sly way. And so it's really quite different.
In Bulgaria, it's like the lady that is the witness to the wedding. Like very like full of ideas. Kind of a bit of a trickster, definitely, but you have that too.
Yeah, it's really the emphasis on trickster, I guess, on the trickster part, so it's quite interesting. Right. And also, very briefly, one thing that I've always struggled with at first, you see, like, the fox, le renard, and in Bulgarian, this it's a ta. It's like, it actually... what's the...
Yeah, the definite article.
Yeah, actually.
I think I've mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of this one. It's a very specific thing, basically.
It's quite interesting, and you also have like Bulgarians really good for those like intangible truth, like много е просто. Like this is very important. This more.
Yeah, but we don't need a this. We don't need anything like that.
That's what I meant. It's it's really good for like this kind of big general ideas. So there you go.
All right, cool. Now, shall I go on with the Italian?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm sure that's not gonna be any good pronunciation. The thing is, I struggle especially like with putting the stress. I don't know where to put it. There is no like 100% rule about it. There is usually no, stress put on the actual syllables. I'll do my best. E ritornò dalla volpe. Addio, disse. Addio, disse la volpe. Ecco il mio segreto. È molto semplice. Non si vede bene che col cuore. L'essenziale è invisibile agli occhi. L'essenziale è invisibile agli occhi. Ripeté il piccolo principe per ricordarselo. È il tempo che tu hai perduto per la tua rosa che ha fatto la tua rosa così importante. È il tempo che ho perduto per la mia rosa. Sussurrò il piccolo principe per ricordarselo. Gli uomini hanno dimenticato questa verità, ma tu non la devi dimenticare. Tu diventi responsabile per sempre di quello che hai addomesticato. Tu sei responsabile della tua rosa. Io sono responsabile della mia rosa, ripeté il piccolo principe per ricordarselo. You find it interesting because it's similar to French in a way.
Tutto bene.
I decided not to talk much about grammar. I would say the Italian grammar is very similar to French grammar.
Extremely. I think didn't research it. I might be wrong, but I think at some point in time we actually copied the Italian grammar on some specific aspect. Like there was some edict that actually.
Even little things that you have, like the pronouns I, no, y, and on, and that exists in Italian. You know?
Yeah. Well, Italian is probably the closest language to Latin that there is around. So, and since French is very, very Latin based as well, it makes sense that, we have a lot of similarities.
So here I decided to focus on a particular word actually, because I found it interesting how, you notice how in all languages, like there is a complete repetition of, like, and the little prince said in order to remember. Well, in the Italian, in one place, there is one word that just changes it. Instead of saying ripete, repeat it, it's sussurrò, which means he whispered, he murmured. And just in one place, just this element was changed.
Yeah, see, susurré.
You have that.
Yeah.
Okay, and I thought it was an interesting choice, kind of really bravely added. It's a bit of an onomatopoeia. It's really like, it's like whispering.
Yeah.
So, the verb in Italian, the infinitive is sussurrare. Sussurrò, he whispered.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded interesting.
Cool.
All right, I'll hand it over to your German then.
Oh yeah, that's probably gonna manage even better than the Bulgarian. So to start with, I had to check how to say fox in German. I think it's Fuchs, and I'm really worried about that. And ich entschuldige mich für for that. But basically, the word to fart in German is Fuß. So I will try really hard to kind of navigate my way around this.
You always tend to say what you're afraid of saying, right?
Yeah. So yeah, just feel free to throw all 9 tomatoes at me if you want. So yeah. Und wandte sich erneut an der Fuchs. Adieu, sagte er. Adieu, sagte der Fuchs. Hier mein Geheimnis. Es ist sehr einfach. Man sieht nur mit dem Herzen. Das Wesentliche ist für die Augen unsichtbar. Das Wesentliche ist für die Augen unsichtbar, wiederholte der kleine Prinz, sich daran zu erinnern. Es ist die Zeit, die für deine Hose geopfert hast, die sie so bedeutsam macht. Es ist die Zeit, die ich für meine Hose geopfert habe, die sie so bedeutsam macht, sagte der kleine Prinz, sich daran zu erinnern. Die Menschen haben diese Wahrheit vergessen, sagte der Fuchs. Aber du sollst sie nicht vergessen. Du wirst immer verantwortlich sein für das, was du sämst. Du bist verantwortlich für deine Hose. Ich bin verantwortlich für meine Hose, wiederholte der kleine Prinz, sich daran zu erinnern.
That sounded German. I mean, I don't speak a word of German, but it sounded like a good accent to me.
I'm certain I butchered it, so sorry about that, but I do hope I pronounced the word fox properly. But yeah.
Alright, so what do you like about
German has a similarity with the other Slavic languages in that...
which Slavic language? It's not other, because there isn't one.
Well, I did read Bulgarian. I meant basically you compile words, it really builds up onto itself. Like you have the root, anvot, which is an answer. And you end up with an adjective, I am verantwortlich, I am to answer for meine Hose. Like I have to.
And that's
Yeah,
responsible.
responsible,
Wow.
which is quite interesting. And and of course the adieu is an interesting touch, I suppose, because adieu is a very strong is a very strong word. It means you will never see the other person ever again.
And would you use that in German, or is it some kind of reference to the French original?
I've heard plenty of basically I've read some literary text with adieu, but it sounds just as dramatic in German as in French, so I guess it's really not something that people would say like that in the street. Like, it's really a big one, so yeah.
Okay, let me do the Russian. My pronunciation is really not good. Weirdly enough, just because of the similarities between Bulgarian and Russian in many other aspects, but in terms of the pronunciation, especially of some vowels, it is just so different that I'm sure it's not gonna be good, or it's gonna be overemphasized, for which I'm sorry. И маленький принц возвратился к лису. «Прощай», сказал он. «Прощай», сказал лис. «Вот мой секрет. Он очень прост. Зорко одно лишь сердце. Самого главного глазами не увидишь. Самого главного глазами не увидишь», повторил маленький принц, чтобы лучше запомнить. «Твоя роза так дорога тебе, потому что ты отдавал ей всю душу. Потому что я отдавал ей всю душу», повторил маленький принц, чтобы лучше запомнить. «Люди забили эту истину», сказал лис, «но ты не забивай. Ты навсегда в ответе за всех, кого приручил. Ты в ответе за твою розу. Я в ответе за мою розу», повторил маленький принц, чтобы лучше запомнить. And what I chose was a shift from the original, which maybe you noticed, it's like the time you wasted in the English, le temps perdu in the French.
Yeah.
But in Russian it is что ты отдавал ей всю душу. The fact that you gave to her your whole soul. Всю душу, its soul is dusha, like in Bulgarian, you know this word. And we use this expression to like your whole soul, like really wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And отдавал as a verb is like you gave to her, but it's an imperfective form. So it's like you kept giving, maybe you're keeping giving, and it's a really strong, really poetic expression that was kind of boldly used that really differed from the original and most translations.
It's interesting. If I may, I could be interpreting this, but it also sounds a bit strange in French when you say le temps que tu as perdu pour ta rose, and my pet theory of mine is that it's a reference to Proust, like à la recherche du temps perdu, because it really makes you think of childhood, and so that's one of my theory. And the other one would be that I've noticed is lis. Like
Lis.
In
Yes,
Russian.
like lisica in
Lisica.
Bulgarian. So in Russian it's actually a masculine, which is interesting.
It's a fun one. So yeah.
So we fought for the Spanish and he won it.
Y volvió con el zorro. Adiós, dijo el principito con tristeza. Adiós, dijo el zorro. He aquí mi secreto. Solo con el corazón se puede ver bien. Lo esencial e invisible a los ojos. Solo con el corazón. Lo esencial e invisible a los ojos, repitió el principito para recordarlo. Lo que hace importante a tu rosa es el tiempo que le has dedicado. Es el tiempo que le he dedicado, repitió el principito con el fin de recordarlo. Los hombres han olvidado, lo siento, esta gran verdad. Dijo el zorro, tú no debes olvidarla, eres responsable, por siempre, de los que hayas domesticado, eres responsable de tu rosa. Soy responsable de mi rosa, repitió el principito para recordarlo. Yeah, sorry for butchering it.
And the point we liked was some expressions with simple adjectives like bien, grande, like just well. Well, bien is not an adjective, it's an adverb, but ver bien in English they say to see rightly.
Yeah.
Well, in the Spanish, even the simple words, like maybe when you isolate them from the text, it sounds a bit too simple, but it's very nice and flowing in the text. The way Spanish is such a melodious language with very... I love the way it's read because you always know where the stress is.
It's very rhythmic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stress is always in a particular place in the last but one syllable, and if it's not, well, there are some exceptions with some letters, but if it is not, it is marked.
Yeah.
So the rhythm is very important. And also, gran verdad, it just means big. And in the French, I think it's just la vérité.
Yeah. Should have actually check it out, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it's funny, we find the same nuance that I really appreciated with English. Like, por siempre eres responsable. Comma, por siempre, comma.
Yeah, okay. And again, gran verdad. Usually grande would be after the noun, but if it's before, it becomes gran. You can tell it just sounds better.
Yeah.
Gran verdad. I think it sounds really nice and poetic and really flowing.
Cool.
And easy to say.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry if I stole the Spanish from you, if you feel like I stole the Spanish from you.
I'll
But
live.
now, let me do the Japanese.
Alright.
Which, yeah, I'm learning Japanese more or less intensively in the moment. But still, I'm sure the pronunciation won't be good, for which I apologize to any Japanese speakers. それから王子様は狐のところに戻った。さよならと王子様は言った。さよなら、狐が言った。じゃあ、秘密を教えるよ。とても簡単なことなんだけどね。物事は心で見なきゃちゃんと見えないんだよ。一番大切なことは目には見えないんだ。一番大切なことは目には見えない。しっかり覚えておけるように王子様は繰り返した。君のバラがとても大切なものになったのは君がバラのために時間を費やしたからだ。僕がバラのために時間を費やしたからとしっかり覚えておけるようにおじさまは繰り返した。人間はこういう心理を忘れてしまっているんだ。狐は言った。でも君はやっちゃいけない。君が懐かせたものには永遠に責任を持つんだ。君は君のバラに責任がある。僕は僕のバラに責任があるとしっかり覚えておけるように王子様は繰り返した。
Well done, well done.
You quote sayonara, right?
Yeah, sayonara.
Can you tell our viewers the misconception that maybe they have heard about sayonara?
The truth of the matter is I was taught that sayonara was au revoir, goodbye, when it's actually not the case at all. If anything, it's like adieu, which is farewell, Godspeed. Like we'll never see again. Like which is not exactly something that you want to say to people.
Well, it depends. Maybe not never. Maybe it doesn't have this implication, but definitely not something you would say every day for like bye, see you tomorrow.
Because adieu does. Like at some point it didn't, but now definitely if you say adieu to someone, you don't expect to see them ever again.
Okay, so actually the bit I chose contains the sayonara. What I was meaning to focus on is the fact that you notice this bit has a lot of repetitions, right? In the original and in the translations, which they handle differently, but mostly it's retained. It's really repetitive. Well, obviously it serves a purpose, but for the Japanese, I was expecting that this high level of repetition would be avoided, because it's considered to be a bad style to be repeating yourself too much. I was looking at some point at the Japanese programming language called Kotodama, which was entirely in Japanese, and even in a programming language they were trying to make it sound beautiful and avoid repetitions. So you would get the programming language using pronouns in order not to repeat a word, kind of varying sentence structure, which really was so kind of paradoxical to what one imagines programming languages should normally do, like just do their job. And I thought with this focus on varied structure, I would find something here in the repetitions. And although it's not super emphasized, I would say it is not repeated the way it is in the other languages. Like here, sayonara to oji sama wa ita. So, goodbye, the little prince said. Sayonara, kitsune ga ita. So we have to when the little prince speaks, but then we don't have it when the fox answers. It is like after direct speech we have, but not, we can have to introduce the fact that it was direct speech, but in informal language it is perfectly fine to omit it, and it is omitted for the second sentence. Also we have wa ita and ga ita to say said. I guess you've heard these particles, right? Very specific to Japanese. They introduce the subject. To be more exact, wa introduces the topic of the sentence and ga introduces the subject. And even though I think it could have worked with using just ga, it uses both of them. Kind of the first one is wa, but the second one just introducing the topic. But the second one with the fox, kitsune ga ita, is like, as for the fox, that's what it said. And also later, ichiban taisetsu na koto wa mei wa mienai da. You cannot, the important things, you can't see them with your eyes. But when the little prince repeats, he changes it a bit, which is a necessity for the Japanese language. There isn't the final nda, which is again something super specific. You can get a sentence which carries all the kind of information a sentence would normally carry in another language, but then the ending gives some additional information. In this case, I would say it's like nda really shows that it's part of a conversation. You're explaining something, you expect their involvement after what you're saying. So that, that makes it not entirely parallel when it comes to the two participants talking.
I see.
Yeah.
Alright,
So
well, that was interesting.
that was interesting.
Don't know much about Japanese, so. Mainly because I'm lazy.
Alright. So, as a French person, you're happy with our discussion of The Little Prince?
Yeah. It's really the big classic for children. So yeah, it's quite nice to see that.
Really works for adults too, though.
It's still a reference, so that's cool. That's a nice thing.
Okay, well, thank you for listening. If we did something wrong, please don't hesitate to tell us.
No, do feel
Well,
free.
we surely did.
We did.
We did. Of course we did.
So
That's
do
okay.
tell us.
We never claimed we wouldn't. We just, was a lot of fun. And please like and subscribe. And see you next time.
The
Bye
YouTube
bye.
stuff. Bye.
Bye.